University. Thanks everyone for joining us. This session is called Staying Flexible, Gigs and Gaps That Pay Off Now. My name is Sally Lawrence. I am the Associate Director of Employer Partnerships for our Career Design and Development Office. And we're really pleased to be bringing this session to you today. So like I said, we're going to take about 45 minutes chatting today and hope everybody takes a lot away from it. Our speakers will discuss how temp opportunities can build your resume and your skill set as a recent graduate or as an experienced professional making a career transition. So graduation is right around the corner, or you might be experiencing transition as an experienced professional. And we're hoping to just shed some light and some discussion on temp opportunities that might really open the door, especially in this climate, economic climate that we're in right now. I'm going to give our speakers a chance to introduce themselves, but very quickly we have Lisa Vercella, Senior Consultant at Monarch Staffing, and Colleen DeFabio, Workforce Management Advisor with BI3 Careers. Lisa, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me, first of all. We have a close working relationship with Widener in a couple of different ways. Monarch Staffing, where I work, as well as Delco SHRM. We are affiliated with the university in that way as well. And as a matter of fact, today is my 12-year anniversary with Monarch Staffing. And I started out probably at one of the worst times to start in staffing, 2008. But I found that I planted a lot of seeds in 2008 and 2009. And then in 2010, things started to come to fruition. My affiliation with Monarch has also offered me the opportunity to get involved with the Chambers of Commerce, both here in Delaware County and the Main Line. I'm actually also an ambassador for the Chamber of Commerce as well. So networking is oh so important. And I'm really excited to be here today and share some opportunities with all of you. So thanks for having me.
Great. Thank you for being a continued supporter of Widener University and our students and alums. Colleen, can you say a couple of things about yourself?
Sure. Good morning, everyone, and thank you also for having me on today. I'm happy to be part of the Widener Alumni Network and being able to share some information with all of you today during this very strange time in the United States and really in the world. So my background is, we're going to talk a little bit about flexibility today. And, I did graduate from Widener with a degree in English education. And my career has evolved just as yours will. And my career led me down a path into the staffing and consulting placement world, which I really didn't even know anything about when I was at Widener. So, we're going to talk today just a little bit about, the journeys that each of you are just getting ready to start on, and how a different type of approach and being flexible can really help you find the direction that you're going to eventually go in. So happy to be here, and I'm also a career counselor and open to connecting with anybody on LinkedIn that does need some assistance during this challenging time. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Colleen. Thank you, Lisa. We're very privileged to have professionals join us today and provide their perspective on this topic. As a reminder, we have a couple of questions for our panelists today, and then we're going to be taking questions from the chat. So hope that everyone feels compelled to ask questions of our panelists, and we'll be taking those shortly near the end of our discussion today. So to kick it off, Lisa, could you start out by telling our audience about what recruiters do, and also specifically about recruiting for temp work? We want to hear from both of you, but if Lisa could kick it off, that would be great.
Sure thing. So Monarch Staffing, we actually staff in one of three different ways. We do temporary staffing. We also do temp to hire staffing, which is probably one of the most popular methods of staffing. And to me, it's a win-win because it allows the employer to make sure that they have the right fit in the candidate, And then also for the candidate, is this a good place for you to be on a permanent basis? So people like that try before you buy type of option. Also, I think one of the things that I am constantly trying to overcome is the misconception that we only do temporary staffing. We do permanent staffing as well. We do direct hire staffing. When employers are in need of folks, they will reach out to us, and we're reactive to their needs, but we're also proactive in that from time to time we'll skill market people to clients that we think may have a need for their expertise. I think one of the misconceptions also is that people think that a temporary job is just that, temporary, but any temporary job has the possibility to go permanent. And that all depends on you. And what we do a lot of is get your foot in the door. And then once you get in there, it's like any other job, that it's your opportunity to show what you can do and really shine. And therefore, employers will then not want to let good people go. So our job is actually twofold. It's helping the employers to find great employees, but it's helping the candidates, employees, to find their next home or their next opportunity. And I think too, with temporary agencies, it's a great opportunity to test the waters, to see if a certain industry is something that fits you, or if a certain position even is something that is of interest to you. I like to tell stories, and one of the stories that I think is a success story from Monarch is the gal that came to us who was a nanny all her life. And she made great money being a nanny, but the problem is with being a nanny, the kids grow up and sometimes the families move away, and that was her situation. The family was moving away, so they no longer had a need for her services. So she needed to transition from being a nanny into the corporate world. She wanted to get into an office position. So when she came to us, we tested her software skills to see where she was in terms of computer literacy, and she was actually really sharp. She presented very well. A job came up in Newtown Square area, as a matter of fact, for a receptionist / admin assistant. And we shared her resume with the client and prefaced that sharing with, don't be scared off by her resume, because had she applied on her own, she very well may have ended up in the no pile because of her background. Although raising children and being a homemaker is one of the hardest jobs in the world, so I don't know how people overlook that. But had we not been an advocate for her, for them to give her a try, she wouldn't have been given that opportunity. And they did give her that opportunity. She eventually became a permanent employee with them, and then was promoted within the company, and we had to fill her old position again. So that, I think, is the other part of utilizing an agency, is that we are an advocate for you. And when we present to a client, we're not only presenting that piece of paper that is your resume, but also a little bit about you and why you'd be a good fit for the job.
Great, thank you. Colleen, do you have anything to add? The question was about, what do recruiters do, and specifically what's, different or specific about recruiting for temp work?
Sure. So I think as, college grads, not everybody understands what a recruiter does and what is considered an agency. So let me just, help everyone with those definitions a little bit. A recruiter works internally either at a large corporation like an Independence Blue Cross or an Amazon, or they also work at an agency. And Lisa and I, and also Janet, all come from the agency side of the business, where we, I'm in sales. I think Lisa's in sales too, where we're getting the positions from clients, and then we work with our recruiting team to help fill the positions. So a recruiter works with the candidates, and that's what you guys will be considered. You'd be a candidate for a potential position. So a recruiter, a couple things to know is they are your advocate, just as Lisa said. They also are there to help you and help put you in the right role, but you have to be able to articulate your strengths to them in a really clear, concise way so that they feel comfortable presenting you to clients. So keep that in mind. When a recruiter reaches out to you, you want to, in this world today, be flexible and let them know that you graduated with a degree in this, but you feel your top 3 strengths are organization, interpersonal skills, and critical thinking. And you could say, I'm open for a position that helps me utilize any of those skills. So, interact with your recruiter and be your own advocate, okay? And also, just one thing we wanted to note is there's a lot of recruiting agencies out there. Some have great reputations, some have not great reputations. So just be careful and make sure that you ask the right questions about the position they're presenting you for, and also what is the actual hourly rate. And be clear in what it is your expectations are. And it's okay to give a range, like I'm looking for 20 to 25 an hour. And also ask questions to the recruiter like, is there travel required? Am I supposed to be there 5 days a week? What are the hours? You want to make sure that they're normal business hours before you make any commitments on an hourly rate. And like I said, there's a lot of recruiters out there. Some are great, some aren't. So just be careful. And if they send your resume anywhere, please ask them for confirmation so that you don't double submit your resume, because that never looks good for the candidate.
Thank you, Colleen. Just going off of that, are there any kind of specific red flags that students or job seekers should look out for? You talked about maybe some staffing agencies or agencies that aren't the most reputable.
I would say Glassdoor is a good place for you guys to go to evaluate the companies that you're working with. Glassdoor will have a rating of that company. Now, just keep in mind, usually the people that take the time to write the Glassdoor reviews are people that didn't have a great experience, but you can still get a sense of some things like benefits and things like that. So things to look out for are if any company asks you for any kind of money to represent you, that's not how these companies work, and you don't want to give anybody money to represent you. So that's the number 1 red flag. The second thing is just ensure that you really do know where your resume is submitted and what the hourly rate is. And I would ask that for confirmation in an email, so you have it if there should be any discrepancies down the road.
Great, thank you. And I see Lisa shaking her head in agreement as well. This may lead into the next question that we have. And Lisa, you touched on it a bit. What are some common misconceptions that students and alumni may have about temp work? We've hit on a lot of things so far, but anything that sticks out so that students and alumni maybe feel comfortable about taking on temp work at this time? Lisa, you could start it off.
So I think, as I mentioned before, just misconceptions about what an assignment entails. Is it a temporary assignment? Does it have the possibility of going permanent? I think the other thing too is that people need to understand, and it's part of their title today, being flexible. So again, stories help me to communicate ideas. We had a graduate that came to us who was an HR major. And so in trying to break into HR, oftentimes it's hard to go right into an HR role. But we had an opportunity as a file clerk in an HR department. And although some people may think, well, that's below me, that's still that foot in the door opportunity. So I think misconception that a job might not necessarily be the exact role that you're looking for, but to be open-minded that it could lead to that role. And that was another success story where he took the job as a file clerk, which paid less than he had anticipated in terms of what his expectations were for his first job out of the gate. But it didn't take him long to get in there, to shine, to let them know that he had an interest in HR because that's what his major was. And then he became a permanent employee and then worked his way into the HR department. So the misconception that a job that you get into, you stay there. That's not necessarily the case. It all depends on you, really. If you go in and let them know what your aspirations are, find your way under someone's wing that can help you to bring you up into the organization, that's super helpful. I think the biggest flag, though, in terms of misconceptions and warnings are, yes, as Colleen mentioned, never have to pay a fee to an agency. And you need to be comfortable with the recruiters, helping them to understand what it is that you're looking for, not only in terms of money, but also a career path for yourself, or if you're switching gears. As I know we're talking with some alum out there as well, and we see people all the time that come to us that have worked in a certain industry for a number of years or a certain position, but they're wanting to shift gears a little bit. So you want someone that is understanding of your position and can help you to reach those goals as well.
Great, thank you. Colleen, do you have anything to add about maybe some common misconceptions that job seekers may have about temp work?
The only thing I would add is, there's temp and there's contract, and some companies will call it temp and some companies will call it contract. The companies that I've worked for, they always called it contract or contract to hire. Lisa, it sounds like Monarch might use the word temp. They're like one and the same. So just know that they're not really different. And so it's temp and contract, or contract to hire, or direct hire.
Oh, can I add something as well?
Absolutely.
One of the things too, this is, and some things I just think are obvious, but not necessarily the case. You can be registered with more than one agency at a time.
Good point.
You can certainly reach out to other agencies and get your feelers out there. So that's something too. It's not that just because you register with one particular agency that you can't register with others. You most certainly can. So I just wanted to add that as well.
Great, thank you. So in the Career Design and Development Office at Widener, we consistently stress the importance of students recognizing their transferable skills. And we've heard that a lot already during this session. The skills that they're obtaining in the classroom and through experiential learning, whether it's internships or research or co-op. But the hard part is, how can they articulate those skills to employers? And we also stress that it's important for students to be open-minded about their first experience out of college and recognize that they can leverage and grow those skills, which we've already discussed a lot so far in the session. Recognizing that it's a first experience and it's an opportunity, even if it's not a long-term opportunity. So, you've touched on this a couple of times, but Colleen, can you comment on how a temp opportunity can help students get their foot in the door at a full-time opportunity? You talked a little bit about contract for hire. Do you see a lot of job seekers do multiple temp work opportunities or contract for hire opportunities, and then prior to getting their foot in the door for the first time opportunity?
Great question. I would say, just to make it real, I've worked in this, temp contract world for 20 years almost. And some of the people that I placed in contract roles 10 years ago are still at those companies, and they're full-time employees. And they're also, from a business perspective, my biggest advertisements and my biggest advocates. So they took a chance, they took a risk, they were flexible, and it ended up being, a great next step in their career. And I've worked with Independence Blue Cross for many years, and they have more than just the company in Philadelphia. They have a whole family of companies. And it's so neat to see people move and get promoted through Independence and the whole family of companies. And that's their true success stories, and it's wonderful to see that.
Right.
So, going back to, I guess the question is, you're taking that chance and being flexible and utilizing your skills that you have that day can actually broaden your skill set, like, and bring you down this path on your career that you never could have even imagined. And even when I went to Widener, when I graduated, there was a lot of teachers in the market. And I worked for Sylvan Learning Center at the time as well, which is a tutoring agency. And I just thought I was going to use my talents that I learned at Widener and by student teaching to teach the students in a tutoring setting. But what was determined, by my management really was that I was very good at interviewing and hiring and pairing teachers with students. Now, this was not a strength that I knew I had at 22 years old. But because I took this part-time job, it actually led me down a path that my whole career journey has been really focused on interviewing and hiring people. So you never know where that part-time job, that internship, or that contract position really can take you.
Great, thank you. And Lisa, kind of the same question, maybe an offshoot, but I mentioned, we're constantly talking to students and job seekers about how to describe and articulate those skills they have, those transferable skills. And you have mentioned, both of you have mentioned several times during the session, that recruiters, they can be your advocate. So how can temp work, how do you help students and job seekers kind of cultivate their strengths and talk about their strengths? Is that something that you offer to job seekers?
Sure. So when we register a candidate with us, we meet with them. And obviously, in light of what's happening in the world today, much of that is being taken care of in either a Zoom session or Skype, even good old-fashioned phone calls. But that's why because we're not necessarily interviewing a candidate for a specific job sometimes. Maybe it's just to get an idea of what are the strengths for this person. And when that job comes in, that's where I think we excel in matching that person to that job. So sometimes those matches don't always work out, but that's the beauty, I think, of going into a situation like this as a temp, because it lets you test the waters. Myself, I am a graduate of Moore College of Art. I graduated in 19, and my first 16 years were spent in the hospitality industry. I actually started at the front desk of a hotel down by the airport as a front desk agent. I was then asked to go into a sales role there, and I said, sure, if you're willing to groom me, I'm willing to learn. And I think that again plays off of that flexibility issue, that you have to be willing to be flexible and always, I think, be willing to learn. I eventually ended up as the general manager for that hotel. And like I said, spent 16 years in the industry. As a consequence of that role, I did a lot of hiring and firing. And so I was already on my way to staffing, but didn't even know it. And so when I reached out to my current boss to find out what other opportunities were there, lo and behold, there was a need for a salesperson at the agency itself. So that wasn't my intent by any means, but that person also recognized something in me as well and said, this is what we're looking for. And to me, it sounded interesting and something that fit into my life at the time. That's the other thing. Everybody that comes to us has a different story. So everybody's in a different boat. There are some people that only want to do temporary work. They are not interested in a permanent full-time job. They only want to do temporary work. Maybe they're supplementing something that they're already doing, or, people that are in their encore careers that they still have a lot to offer, but they're looking to dial the stress level back a little bit. So we see folks in that boat, but then we see folks that are newly graduated that are coming out and looking to carve their path. And so therefore they think they know what they want to do, but to get into the real world, to try it, is also something that is attractive to them, is that, again, dipping your toe in, testing the waters. It is really important that you learn to communicate to not just the recruiters, but in general, I think, what your aspirations are, what your strengths are. Every time that you interview, it's another opportunity to refine that language for yourself. Eventually, your resume will go from a listing of jobs that you've held to something that represents the key accomplishments that you've had at those jobs. So that's why I always encourage people, it's so important to volunteer and have that on your resume, to network. And there's not enough that can be said for networking. You have to reach out to other people, whether it's in person, although that's difficult at this time, but LinkedIn, referrals, asking for introductions. Every time I link in with somebody, I always offer them, take a look at my connections and let me know if I can make any introductions. Even though we're in the business of placing people into jobs, a lot of recruiters find people through referrals. So it's important that you build your network, and therefore you will be that person that will come to the front of someone's mind, that I'm looking for an accounting person. Oh, I just connected with someone. Let me introduce you. So it's really important to build your network, be able to articulate and communicate your strengths, your wants, and your needs. I think that's important too. And just being open-minded and being able to flex. Some of the most valuable employees out there are the ones that can flex. And it has never been tested more than it has right now. Just this whole, I'm typically out on the road. That's my job, is to be out knocking on doors, meeting with clients. This is very different for me, working from home, not being able to be out. But there are still ways, thanks to technology, that I can reach out to people and keep those connections going. So I think that's important too.
Great, thank you. I think that we all have a new set of transferable skills after this experience that we've never realized that we had or needed before. So that's a great point. And throughout this, both of you have been talking about making connections, and I'm so glad, Lisa, that you brought up networking, because what a fantastic way to expand your network. And it's kind of like the path is paved for you. It's you're already being introduced to people in the industry that maybe you're interested in. So it's so important to keep that network of people that you've met through these opportunities. So thank you so much for bringing that up. I want to give you guys a chance, and before I just wanted to make a reminder to our participants on the call that we are taking questions in just a few minutes. And so please put your questions in the chat. But I wanted to ask both of you, and I'll have Colleen, if you could start. Can you share examples of roles that you are recruiting for now? And I know I'm interested in what kind of industries are recruiting at this point, and maybe what you forecast who may be recruiting, through the summer and maybe the fall.
Good question. So, there's a couple of industries that will actually be busier because of the COVID-19 experience that we're all going through. So like any industry, data is king right now. Data is gold. So anyone that has an interest in any kind of data analytics, predictive modeling type of position, those positions are going to spike. Every single company is going to need to understand how they've been impacted. So they're going to need people with very good Excel skills that can manipulate data, develop pivot tables, and then present data for visualization so companies can make business decisions. So I am a partner with a data solutions company, and that's one of the areas that is going to be spiking. It's not yet, but it will be probably by the time people graduate. People will start to get back to work, and leaders will say, we need to understand how many people went to the doctors. We need to understand how many people submitted a claim. So the healthcare industry will we'll see a spike in various kinds of needs. The other industry, the banking industry, these big banks, and Delaware is so close to us, and most of the big banks are there, have a presence there. They're looking for entry-level positions, loan processors, mortgage reviewers. These are very good entry-level positions. They pay sometimes $17, $18 an hour, and that's like the first position you can get in a big bank that will give you an understanding of like the workflow of how a loan gets processed or how a mortgage gets approved. And that's a really great stepping stone for anybody that may want to be look for a position in the financial industry. So healthcare, finance is definitely going to see a spike. So if you have an interest in those companies, go to their website. Some of them are already hiring for some of these more entry-level positions. So, take advantage of this time. That's actually a great opportunity for many people right now.
Great, thank you.
That's from the industries that I work with. So data, and also there's a term in the industry called business agility. Everyone needs to be, and right now companies are becoming agile in ways that they never have. So you as a candidate want to show how agile you are, that you can pivot quickly, that you can make decisions and move on. These are all strengths that we talked about a little bit earlier that are going to be key right now.
Thank you. Lisa, do you want to comment on any or share examples of roles that you are recruiting for right now, or what looking into your crystal ball, what you think is going to be happening this summer?
Oh boy, I wish I had a crystal ball, because I would be a very rich woman. But kind of mirroring a lot of what Colleen had mentioned, healthcare is huge right now. We're working with some companies that, life still goes on in the midst of all of this. So people that still need to have kidney dialysis, those places are still open. They are very much essential. So healthcare is booming right now. And it's not just the direct care workers, although we're seeing a lot of that, and not just in a place that you would consider healthcare, whether it's a hospital or a clinic, things like that. There are great needs right now for CNAs, for servers, for wait staff in some of the assisted living homes that we're working with. Also to manufacturing, obviously. Amazon is just booming right now. But any of those businesses, as Colleen had mentioned, that had to shift from, at one time, all of these design houses that were creating clothing are now creating face masks and things like that. So they've had to do that shift. So the ripple effect of that is huge. So with more of those kinds of needs, there's a lot more paperwork that's involved. So there are administrative needs, even in a manufacturing industry. Recently read about a company that does interior design, and they have shifted in making kind of these makeshift hospitals that you're seeing spring up in these tents around the country. So those needs have come out of nowhere, and I don't even think they would have anticipated that. Banking, huge. I actually was on a Zoom call earlier this morning, and one of the women involved in that call is with one of the larger banks in the area, and they have already even started their summer internship programs early, because so many schools are, doing things remotely, and there's no end in sight as far as them going back. So they've started a lot of the internships early. So those are opportunities right now, even though it's only April. The summer's not far, but they've started the need earlier because they're inundated with calls. As Colleen had mentioned, all of the loans and just general information that they're having to give out. Banks are being inundated right now. So the financial services industry, I think you're going to see a lot of that going forward. As I mentioned, manufacturing, companies that do credit checks for people trying to get mortgages. They're in need, because that kind of stuff is still happening in the background, even though You know, there's some different schools of thought in the real estate world in terms of allowing people to, you know, there are no open houses right now, but people are still doing video tours or virtual tours of homes, and doing all the back end of things in terms of paperwork before an actual move or a settlement takes place. So those kinds of industries. But what we're working on personally right now at Monarch is more in the healthcare industry, but on the administrative side of things, and also in the manufacturing companies, those needs that are more office related as well. That's because that's what we specialize in. And that's one of the things, you know, that we didn't touch on, and I probably should just back up a little bit on that. Do your homework on your agencies. If you're an IT person, there are agencies that specialize in IT roles. Or if you are someone who is a direct care provider, be it a nurse, a CNA, an LPN, there are agencies that specialize in that. So you want to do your homework on the agency to make sure that it's a right fit based on what your skill set is. So we personally don't do clinical staffing. We don't staff teachers, things like that, but there are agencies that specialize in that. So those are some of the things that you want to look at. Just kind of came to my mind as I was talking, so.
No, that's a great point. Like, I've spent 20 years in information technology. I've only worked for companies that place people in IT positions.
Great. That is a great point. And all of that, I think, is of real interest to those on the call, for sure, as we're all kind of wondering how we'll navigate the next couple of months. So I appreciate that input. We have about 5 minutes left, and I saw some questions coming in. Our executive director, Janet Long, is manning the question and answer chat. So Janet, do we have any questions for our panelists?
We do. A few came in privately as well. And first, a huge thank you to Lisa and Colleen. This has been so valuable. So one question is coming and relates to Lisa's comment about internship. And this is for both of you. How can a student find out about internships through an agency? And do most agencies offer summer internships for current students?
The companies that I work with, which are Comcast, Independence Blue Cross, Radian Mortgage Insurance, they run that program through their own internal HR group. So, but they do advertise them on their careers page on their websites. The agencies that I have worked with through the years, the people that end up with the summer internships typically are children of parents that work at that agency. So, but, you know, most, you know, and even check with Sally or anybody in the career center, sometimes, you know, universities will be asked for students for internships. So I would talk to someone in the career center first, but then I would also just search, you know, summer internships for data analysis, summer internships for project coordinators, and see what you get. And then go, like they always say, please have them apply directly to our website. That's what I hear from most of my clients.
Great. And how about you, Lisa? Thank you, Colleen.
Sure. So depending on the relationships that we have with our clients, and most of those are actually really strong relationships, we're constantly staying in touch with them. And the challenge has always been, it's the cart before the horse thing. Is it, do you have the internship first and then put the intern in it, or do you have the intern first and then find the internship? So that has always been the challenge for us. And a lot of it comes down to timing, because I know that as students, they have to have those internships lined up, you know, well ahead of the time that they would actually start them based on, you know, where they are in their semester. So we're constantly reaching out to our clients to find out if there are, and it typically is in the summer that we see those internship opportunities, sometimes in the winter during the winter break, but mostly in the summer. And just to kind of reiterate what Colleen said, yes, a lot of it is that they're bringing in their children. The employees bring in their own children that are students and need to do an internship, but that's not always the case. There are opportunities elsewhere. So it's really a matter of checking job boards, websites of companies that you're interested in working with, and with agencies, letting them know that you do have an interest, you have a need to do an internship. I will say though that our internships, and if we staff for them, must be paid internships. That's the other caveat, because there are some internships that are unpaid and those we can't help with. So just to kind of make sure that that's clear, that it needs to be a paid internship that we as an agency can help with.
Oh, thank you for that. And for people on the call, they probably would prefer the paid internship for sure. So Lisa, this is a question to you, but Colleen as well. Certainly, you had mentioned the idea of researching agencies to make sure you find the right fit. Are there any particular websites that our alumni or students can use to do that?
You know, boy, in this day of Google, you can Google anything. It really is just a matter of, you know, if it is IT that you're interested in, you can simply just Google IT staffing agencies, and there will be a laundry list that will come up for you. I think too, when you look at an agency, even if you just Google staffing agencies in my area, and you take the top 3 to 5, let's say, and go to those websites for the agencies, a good idea is to look at the jobs that they have posted on their website, because it'll give you a great idea of the kinds of positions that that particular agency staffs for. So I think if you're just typing in the keywords to do a staffing search for whatever, you know, industry that you're looking to get into, that would be helpful. And then, like I say, look at those job boards on both client sites, which are directly on the company sites, but on the agency sites as well. Look at their open jobs, and it'll give you a great idea of the kinds of positions that they do staff for.
Great, great. Did you want to add anything to that, Colleen, or?
Now, I would just say LinkedIn is, you can set up job agents on LinkedIn to be sent to you for free. So if you know you want to work in business process management, which I know is a major at Widener, you can set up jobs to be sent to you daily, weekly, monthly. So please use that as an option, because it'll save you time in looking for positions.
That's a great idea. And the last and probably the most important question is, our viewers would like to know the best way to get in touch with you guys. And we can put that into the chat box. So Colleen, how would you prefer people to reach out to you?
I would say, you know, give me a call. I have plenty of time right now and would love to help people. I'll tell you my number, but you could also put it in the chat box, or do you want me to type it in right now?
I can type it in if you want to say it.
Okay, so my mobile number is 610-299-5780. And my email is Colleen, so COLLEEN .DiFabio, DIFABIO @bi3careers.com. And I just want to point out the BI3, that is careers, that is my company, which I started after working for so many companies. And the 3 I's are kind of summarize what we discussed, which were insights, impacts, and inspirations. And it's always about being insightful about yourself and your strengths, making an impact in an organization, and then joining networking groups or being a mentor to other people within an organization to inspire other people.
And great. And Colleen, is it all right for people to reach out to you on LinkedIn as well?
Absolutely. Please connect to me. And like Lisa said, look at my connections. If you see someone at a company that you have an interest in, please don't hesitate to send me a LinkedIn message or text me or email me.
That's great. Thank you so much. And how about you, Lisa? What is the best way for students or alum to get in touch with you?
Sure. So I did include in the chat box my email address and
Great.
phone, my direct line.
Perfect.
Email is probably the best way, although certainly you can call that line. We're actually working remotely, so we're working through an app on the phone, and I just don't trust it all the time. So email, I do trust a little bit more. So that would be my first preference, but then certainly call. Please feel free to link in with me. Absolutely, what Colleen had mentioned, set yourself up so that recruiters can see you on LinkedIn. There's an option to do that. So you want to make sure that you're visible to recruiters. And there are other opportunities to do that with Indeed, where you can set yourself up to have jobs come to you kind of on a regular basis. But certainly link in with me. I'm happy to make introductions or share information on LinkedIn as well.
Thank you so much. And Sally, I will throw it back to you.
Sure. Well, thank you again to our panelists, Lisa Verzella with Monarch Staffing and Colleen DeFabio with BI3 Careers. We were so happy to hear from you today. To all the participants on the call, we hope that you will join us next Wednesday at lunchtime at noon for session number 3 of our speaker series for alumni and seniors. It is entitled, and it's something that we all want someone to tell us, it will be okay, staying resilient in your career search. So we're going to have Widener's own experts, Dr. Jennifer Hurwitz and Dr. Mary Rourke, and they will discuss proven strategies for self-care in the present as you plan for the future. So I will be tuning into that call, and I hope that you all will as well. Stay healthy, everyone, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck, everyone.
Have a great day.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.